for their support of Zennie62Media's coverage of the virtual Democratic National Convention. And without any further ado, I want to introduce the man who has been my boss and mentor for so many years. First, when I was actually hired me to be economic advisor to him as the mayor of Oakland from 1995 to 1999. And then when I started Sports Business Simulations, he was on my advisory board as well. Actually, Elihu, do you realize it was because of you that I discovered VloggerCon and dived heavily? I was already doing vlogging, but because you introduced me to Jeffrey of Baltimore TV, and he invited me to join them at VloggerCon and basically help get in so I wouldn't have to pay $600 because of that. But because of that, that changed my life. So I have you to thank for that, because, folks, I was basically showing him what I was doing, what I discovered with YouTube and Blip TV. And then he said, hold on a second. He pushed the button and Jeffrey Heyman came in. And Jeffrey says, are you going to VloggerCon? And I said, what's that? And that's when my life changed. So I just want to mark that. All of that really created, in a sense, what we're doing today. And, of course, Bill Carroll is my longtime friend who has covered the NFL draft with me for so many years and is in Chicago, but has more than a passing knowledge of politics, including Chicago politics. And
especially full contact politics.
That's right. Right. So full contact politics is something that both of you men are more familiar with. I think Elihu steeped in it because he's worked in it than anybody else. A few other people that I know. Elihu, though, I want to talk about the DNC convention. And what are your thoughts going into tonight's first night in this virtual convention?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's a whole new experience. First time they've had a convention virtual. Usually there's 25, 30, 50,000 people who are either in or around the convention. This time, you're talking about everybody being at different sites around the country. How this will come off from a production standpoint, from a viewing standpoint, remains to be seen. But I'm obviously optimistic and hopeful this is going to be an experience. It's going to be, quite frankly, trend-setting. Maybe it'll set the stage for future conventions. We'll find out.
What do you think about how this is going to impact local races? And what I mean by that, more this position of having the campaign virtually, where as opposed to you're a practitioner of the traditional politics where you get the lawn signs, you do the walking, and how can you expect to win in this environment? Isn't this produce a bit of a challenge that is scary? It scares me.
Well, first of all politics is local, as you know. And when people are separated by space and time, sometimes very difficult to connect the dots, put together the kind of an organization that comes about when people are actually in touch with one another, feeling the energy, feeling the vibe, kind of feeling the spirit. In this case, people are in remote locations. Hopefully they'll get that spirit and that vibe from outstanding speeches. You have great speakers in the Democratic Virtual Convention. And whether or not they're able to connect with an audience that's in living rooms and in offices, and again, throughout the country, remains to be seen. But again, I'm optimistic there'll be that kind of connection and that kind of energy will come out of the convention that will allow people to go ahead and do the work at the local level that will not only enhance the vote, but also the outcome.
What are you most looking forward to seeing in this convention, boss, either tonight or through the week?
I think everybody's looking to see Michelle Obama. I mean, she's a star attraction, certainly from the standpoint of the energy, probably the most admired woman in the country, if not the world. I think she'll bring a certain kind of a vibe, a certain kind of energy that hopefully will be contagious, and everybody will catch that energy, that positivity that defines Michelle Obama. If that's the case, we'll be off to a great start, and we'll see that it carries itself throughout Thursday to the actual agreement and the assumption of the nomination by Joe Biden.
And you talk about Kamala Harris, and we haven't had a chance to talk about someone that we both have known for some time. You'll end up more than me, but I go back to when she ran for DA, and I went to her first event in Delancey Street, which, Delancey Street in those days was like the second home of the Democratic Party locally. But talk about Kamala Harris.
Well, look, I've known Kamala about 25 years. The last 16 have been absolutely amazing. Since she first ran for district attorney in San Francisco, to obviously her run from the state attorney general position to her race for the Senate, and now the vice presidency, she's been on a meteoric pace for 16 years, continuing to make moves, continuing to be relevant, and continue to be a star. You got to give credit when you see someone who has been able to maintain that constant ascendancy in politics. And, you know, she's going to be a heartbeat away from the presidency if she wins this election in November. And I think you got to give credit to a young woman who's come out of the Bay Area, come out of Oakland in specific, and now is achieving great things at the national and hopefully international level as well. So you got to be excited about her unique position as a candidate, as well as the unique vantage point she brings as someone of color coming out of the Bay Area.
You know what people don't talk about, I was trying to get them on the show, but how she's got this family of politically involved folks, like this Tony West, who's been, in fact, when I started out, as I ran, this is how stupid I was, Elihu and Bill. I started out as running for a delegate, but guess when I started? I started the day before the vote. Okay. All right. By contrast, Tony West had been, folks, if you don't understand how this works or know, you can actually be a local delegate, but you have to run your own election. And he had a campaign, he had Mia, he had all these great folks involved. And they were the ones who actually got me involved in the Obama campaign. But then I interviewed Tony and got to know his people, went to all their fundraisers, it seems like over there on the other side of Lake Merritt. They are, to me, the glue that holds her together. I don't mean she's falling apart, but she's got this, you know, the nation talks about, rightly so, I think, Black sororities and how AKA has helped her. But what no one talks about, I think because they're not local, but even local folks don't talk about it, are her real family. You know, I don't mean her LA family. I mean Tony, and then of course there's Eric Katzer, and you know, a lot of really accomplished people of color, but Black and women too, very powerful women who really keep her together. What do you say?
I remember Tony West ran for the state assembly from San Jose and lost the election. He was the deputy attorney general then in the state of California. And then obviously her sister Maya, who's been a policy expert, they've been her backbone when it comes to her candidacy for every office that she's run for. And they've been in the shadows. They never tried to get in front. They never tried to be obvious or loud. They've always been in a supportive role. When you are running for office, particularly the highest levels, having that kind of support in the background, not trying to overshadow, but being there to give you the confidence and the sense that you do have that kind of support, I think makes all the difference for anyone running for office, particularly at the national level.
Hey, Bill, you have a question for Mayor Harris, by the way?
Sure. There's been a lot of concern by some quote-unquote progressives about her credentials. But when I see that she's worked with people like Latifah Simon and many others, these are not people that would ally themselves with someone that they thought was not serious about addressing progressive issues. When someone says they're concerned about her credentials in terms of being a progressive or working with progressives, how do you answer that kind of question?
Well, it's really simple. You know, progressive in California is different than progressive than a lot of people think. I mean, she was listed by Trump as the most liberal member of the U.S. Senate. You know, you can't catch a break. You're the most liberal or the most conservative. People put labels on people. What you have to look at is her social consciousness. The fact that she was a prosecutor was the fact that she wanted to do justice, not that she wanted to put people in jail. And she had all kinds of programs that I speak to her progressive values. She was against the death penalty. She supported working with people in the diversion program and the homeless. I mean, those are creative programs in 2004 when she was the district attorney. Yes, she was a prosecutor, but a prosecutor also puts bad people in jail, not just people who are in fact doing positive things or people who are nonviolent drug offenders. So I think people have to look at her record and understand she was trying to protect the community from violent offenses. She was trying to do justice for the homeless, for those who were on drugs, and for those who frankly were disadvantaged. I think she has an outstanding record as a prosecutor who was fair and who was interested in justice. That ought to be the concern. Like somebody who's a police officer saying, well, you were a cop, so you're automatically disqualified. No, you want good people to be in law enforcement. You want good people to be district attorneys. If all you want is the evildoers to be in positions of authority, that sort of negates the obvious possibility of progress and improvement. So I have no idea what people are talking about when they don't think she's progressive. She certainly has had a progressive record as a legislator, as a senator, and I have no idea what they're talking about other than they want to put a label on her. She was a district attorney and attorney general.
Hey, having heard what you said, boss, it seems to me that Biden selecting her as his running mate is almost a kind of a weird political head fake. In other words, she's got this law and order resume by some, but she has this progressive resume by others. And I think, and I wanted your comment on this, it seems to me that Biden perhaps knew that the Republicans and Trump wouldn't know what to do with that.
Well, two things. One, she was the obvious choice. I mean, she'd run for president. She had a pretty good following, although her candidacy failed for a number of different reasons. But she at least had stood the test of running for national office. Running nationally is no joke. I mean, you subject yourself to all kind of verbal attacks, to all kind of spurious attacks, and she withstood that to a great extent. She's already been battle tested, if you will. The other thing that I would tell you about Kamala is that she draws fire. She draws fire from Trump. He hasn't attacked Biden in the last week. He's been so focused on her women's status, her minority status, her status as a senator. He has not had the time to go after Biden. So the fact that she's been able to draw the fire away from the presidential candidate in and of itself is a victory. She was the obvious choice. I think she's doing everything she was expected to do. And if she continued to follow the lead of the president, not try to outshine the president, but stay in her, or the presidential nominee, I should say, but stay in her lane, I think she will be successful, not only in her candidacy, but also if she's the vice president-elect.
Hey, I want to welcome our man in Florida, Eric. How you doing, man? Eric, meet my boss, former boss. I always call him boss. Former Mayor Elihu Harris of Oakland, who should have been a 3-term mayor of Oakland, but
I was smart. If I'd been stupid, I would have run again.
Gentlemen, good evening. I was backstage listening to everything, and I'm very honored to be a part of this collective group right here. You gentlemen bring so much education to someone like me who needs to be continually educated on, the policies and the legislation. And I heard what Mr. Harris, what you were saying about Kamala, and that's kind of to the point, where I feel when it comes to her being the pick by Vice President Biden. Someone said to me, you need the right people on Capitol Hill, but you need those people who are not only educated, but who have that experience level. And I feel that she definitely has that. So I'm excited to see her become the first Black vice president woman in our country. So
the other thing I would tell you all is this.
And our first Asian vice president.
Yes,
right,
yes,
right.
yes.
Although nobody would know it to look at her.
right, exactly.
But here's the deal. We have a binary choice. Trump and Pence or Harris and Biden. I mean, name your pick. Even if you think she's poison, one is fatal poison, and the other make you a little sick. You make your choice. You're going to commit suicide, or you're going to try to keep alive and be able to make improvements. She at least has a floor. She has a morality. She has a concern and a compassion that is obviously not met on the Trump-Pence side. So, when people are criticizing her, okay, look at what the reality is. You're either going to get she and Biden, or you're going to get Trump and Pence. If you can stomach Trump and Pence for 4 more years, we have no conversation, because you're an idiot, and I don't really talk to people who are that stupid.
Hey, and I want to look up on that because MSNBC, it seemed like there were this rash of polls, which I'll get to in another second, but MSNBC said that in their poll, 58% of the people that were polled, 56%, excuse me, were actually going to select the Biden-Harris ticket because they don't like Trump. So it's more a matter of, oh my God, they're ready to get on with it. Have you ever seen anything like this?
I don't think anybody has ever seen anything like Donald Trump before. Donald Trump has no real ideology. He has no real loyalty other than to himself. He's a misogynist. He's a liar. He's a racist. I mean, every bad thing you can think about a person, he demonstrates on a daily basis. And for people who are going to rationalize his lack of character, and more importantly, his lack of compassion for the poor of any ethnic identity, to me, it's just kind of crazy. I've never seen anyone who has been as lacking in principle as Donald Trump. And for the person who wrote the book, it was all a lie. I think it's really true. He has, in 10 months, he's transformed what we thought of as the Republican Party into being an amalgamation of idiots. And that's a sad reality. I've had respect for Republicans, even when I disagreed with them, because I at least thought they had some principle. They were for things like a balanced budget. They were for free trade. They may have been for less government. And I thought there ought to be more government that was doing things to help people out of their circumstances, certainly out of their poverty. But these guys, they're all over the map. You got white evangelicals who are just for him because he's against a choice. You got other people who like him because he's pro-business and big business in particular. You name your poison, he is giving you that pill. And if you want to swallow it, you'll get closer to whatever you want to be than you were before. So I'm telling you, you got to figure out who you are. And if you're a human being that has any compassion for other human beings, it's really hard to understand how you can stomach somebody like Donald Trump.
I have a question for everybody. And well, first of all, before I get to that question, let me focus more on a local question to Oakland, boss. How do you see the political races shaping up? Because you got, in the context of how hard it is to campaign, when you can't walk, you say a person buy a lawn sign or put your lawn sign out, but no one's going to see your lawn sign, right? But you got District 1, Dan Kalb is the incumbent, Lynette Gibson McElhaney in District 3, and you've got what would seem to be a huge battle in District 7, although the signatures seem to have whittled some people out of the race. And how do you see these races shaping up?
I think you're right. The pandemic has given us a unique campaign environment. I think times are still relevant because people see them. They're driving to the store. They're driving for those who are working or driving home. And I think they give a sense of neighborhood support. But in reality, it's going to be a unique campaign. It's going to be decided by the quality of mail, the quality of walking to the extent that you can walk, certainly by the extent of phone calling, and more importantly, by the absentee ballot. You're going to have a high turnout. And by, I would say, the third week in October, most people, if not 3/4 of them, will have already voted. So I think you're really going to see an election that's going to be very unique in terms of how it's conducted, certainly a very unique campaign as it relates to how votes are gathered, bundled, and delivered to the registrar. And in the final analysis, how you convince the voters that you're the candidate who can best represent their interests and, in some cases, change the dynamic, if not the culture, at City Hall.
Do you think that, or how much do you think that the pandemic will impact the outcome from the perspective of housing? People supposedly have moved or left Oakland, and others have lost their jobs. How do you see the pandemic impacting this Oakland races?
Well, gentrification is real. Over the last 15 years in particular, we've seen a continued influx of new people, many from San Francisco, who have decided that Oakland is a more desirable environment, in some cases, a better economic bargain from the standpoint of housing in San Francisco. Now I think the question is, are they going to be able to develop a sense of community? Are they, in fact, now going to recognize they live in Oakland? Are their futures in Oakland? The elected officials who serve them have to be representative, have to be accountable. And if they can begin to identify who they believe will best serve and who will most be accountable to them, we will have effective elected officials, and we'll have people who will back be responsive to the grassroots community that elects them.
Of all of them, who do you think is in the toughest position to win? I'll tell you who I think is in the toughest race. I think that Lou Giles in a tough race against Richard Rea, because Richard Rea is a popular Oaklander who made a shift. I mean, having said that, Richard didn't win District 1, but he came out of it stronger, and he's managed to, maintain a profile, although not a high one. But what do you think about it?
I think that I think all the races that are contested are going to be difficult, including the at-large race. People are raising money. They're getting their message out. They're running a structured campaign. And the question is, can they resonate with the voters? We won't know that certainly over the next 60 days. When it gets down to the last 15 days, we'll have a much better idea. But currently, I
have another question regarding Oakland before we shift back to the national, and that's it's from an unusual angle. I remember when I think everybody in this room is familiar with the Oakland Barbecue Becky situation, right?
Right.
Right. Okay. Bill and Eric, you know about Barbecue Becky, the lady that in Lake Merritt came to three brothers, Kinsey Smith, who's a friend of mine, and basically said, "Hey, you know, you're not supposed to be here," and tried to call 911 on him.
I do. I've heard that. Yes.
Yeah, Bill, you know about Barbecue Becky or Jessica Schulte? Bill?
Wasn't Barbecue Becky sort of a forerunner of the modern Karen?
Yes, absolutely. That's quite correct. Yeah, you know, you're aware. Okay, yeah. I asked that for this reason. Okay, when I was interviewing Kinsey, he told me, it's on Zennie62 on YouTube, that he harassed them for 3 hours, not 22 minutes as is in the video, right? 3 hours. And among other things, she said, "You're not supposed to be here because I own the lake. I bought it for $5.7 million." And I told Kinsey right in the middle of our interview, I stopped and I said, "Wait a minute. She told you she bought Lake Merritt for $5.7 million as opposed to billion, and you didn't call 911 on that basis alone?" I'd have had the cops on her like that. Point that I'm making is that we have people coming over from San Francisco and other areas who are also whacked out. And we don't talk about that aspect of change in Oakland, but it has affected us. I remember there was a blog post written on the bold italic by a woman whose name I'm not going to mention, who's an Oaklander, who admitted that in the middle of her postpartum depression, she was racist. You hear what I'm saying? So there is this problem of, you know, mental illness, I don't know, and it could be related to drugs and everything else that we're not talking about in Oakland. How do we start that discussion? Or am I wrong, and this is just the way things have changed? Where am I?
I don't think you're wrong. I think it's just a factor. There are people who are mentally ill. There are people who are drug addicted. There are people who are uneducated. I mean, we're an amalgamation of different people, and that's why we live in a pluralistic society. The question is, you got to appeal to those who are constructively engaged, those who are educated, those who have a real interest in what's going on in their community. The rest of them, unfortunately, are, if not victims, perpetrators. And you got to figure out how to talk to the people who actually engage in trying to be relevant to their community and constructive in their participation in a democracy. There's all kinds of people in any given city, and they all take all kinds, whether they're gentrifiers or people who've been here for decades. You know, they're just people. And you have to appeal to those people who want to be listened to, are rational, and who really want to be, again, part of the solution and not part of the problem.
And before we shift back to the national, I can't resist. You're involved behind the scenes in District 7 with Bishop Bob Jackson. How do you talk about Bishop Bob Jackson, why you feel he's the best choice for District 7?
Well, first of all, I have two really good friends. I've known Treva since she was a young girl. Treva Reed, Larry Reed's daughter, who's running for District 7. And I have a lot of respect for both of them. I had talked to Bishop Jackson over a year ago about his candidacy, so I was already committed to it. What I like about Bob Jackson is he's been involved in the community for the last 35, 40 years. He's been raised in the community, lived in it all of his life. He's done affordable housing. He's done work with the homeless. He's done feeding programs. He's helped those who are getting out of incarceration with his Men of Valor program. So I love his long-term involvement in the community. And I think that record is something that needs to be perpetuated and certainly needs to be represented at City Hall. Treva, on the other hand, is a relative newcomer, and I think her commitment is real. I think she's obviously qualified. I just think that the person who's been there over that length of time has a better record upon which to run.
Now, I'm going to open this out to Bill and Eric. Are there races in Chicago and in what part of Florida do you live in, or Florida, that we should be aware of and keep our eyes on?
Bill, I'll defer to you on that one.
I'm thinking of a nice way to put this. I don't want to say flat out no, But I mean, there's some races, but how do I? There's not a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Anticipation. I don't want to say we already know who's going to win, but we already know who's going to win. I'll just tell you, in Chicago, once you've won the Democratic primary, you've won. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, a Republican has not won a citywide election since Big Bill Thompson, probably. I mean, you got to go back a way.
It was way back.
It's been a minute. So once you've won the Democratic primary, with very few exceptions, I mean, in the city itself, and once you get out in the suburbs, things change. But in the city itself, with very few exceptions, once you've won the Democratic primary, you can basically start getting your new business cards printed up.
Eric, you got anything to add, or you want
to? The woman that I'm hoping is the one who does get the nod. Her name is Michelle Rayner. She's Florida House District 70.
Right.
And I really hope that she is the individual who is successful. Now, I've just done a very little bit of research and my homework on her. And unfortunately, she's not, because of where I live, I can't vote. I shouldn't say I can't vote for her. I'm just not in her district. But she is probably the person who I'm really pushing for, because I feel she is going to be the one to really give us somewhat of a turnaround in this state. So that's probably the only person I can tell you right now. With regards to, my local and county officials, I'm voting. I just kind of very much like Bill, I have an idea, as I know who is going to be the winner. I'm not sure if it's going to be the people that I have chosen to vote for.
I'm kind of used to that. So back to the national focus. I have a bone to pick with the party, right? And it's not a bad bone, because heck, the party let me cover the convention, so I can't be mad at the party. But nonetheless, I have a concern, and Elihu, you're the elder statesman, and I really love your feedback on this, because I have an issue with this. And I think I told you about this in 2016 when I complained to the party that the Republicans were eating our lunch in social media and digital media. And there were operatives at the party didn't want me at the convention. They got their way. I wasn't there, right? But here we are this time. And look, $10 million was spent last week by the Republicans for Trump. Every time I turn around, I was seeing ads for Trump on my blogs, including Oakland News Now. So I ripped out the code for Oakland News Now, because ads are not our primary source of revenue by far anyway. And overall, and then all of a sudden I was getting this email and then watching that program, and it didn't matter if it was MSNBC saying at one point that Trump was tied with Biden, or some other kind of news that was for Trump. I got the impression somebody's money was being spent on the Trump side, and it was affecting media. Tell me when I'm off my rocker, because I feel like, once again, we're trying to stack the deck against us, and we're not fighting back.
Social media is something that a lot of people are behind the times on. It's really most effective with young voters because they obviously look at TikTok and every other social media you can find, Instagram, you name it. And I think that we're catching up. We're a little slow. It was very predominant in 2016. It was certainly used effectively by the Republicans, the Trump organization. But this has been going on for a while. They invested heavily in social media. A lot of that was because of the dark money. If you read the book, you should. If you haven't, you should. Which is the dark money coming from people like the Koch brothers have allowed them to invest in that level of technology in ways that the Democrats didn't understand. They thought they were doing traditional campaigning, when you put money on television or you put money into getting out the vote, it just is not as effective because there are too many people who are being influenced by Facebook and other forms of social media, and not enough by the more directed mail and commercial that the Democrats have traditionally invested in. They're changing, they're evolving, but not very good.
Hey, boss, I know you've got a busy agenda, and love for you to stick around, but I want for you to stay patch to take if you need to go.
Well, I'm going to go because I've dominated the conversation. Eric,
no. If you can stick around, I want you to stay. That's exactly what I want. But I also know you're not the kind of person that's going to say, "Oh, Zennie, I just wanted to check in with you," because you are unfailingly polite and you're great mentor to me over the years. Look, I want you to stay. That's what.
First of all, let me say a couple of things, and I'm going to get off the air. One, Zennie, I want to compliment you on your persistence in developing this national platform relative to what's going on with the Democratic Party, and hopefully give you the same opportunity with the Republican Party. I mean, the voices need to be heard. We need to listen. We are in a society where information is fugitive and things change day to day. If you're not staying on top of it, if you're only getting your information from one source, whether it's MSNBC or Fox News, you're not getting the whole picture. You need to try to get as much information as you can. Draw your own conclusions based on logic. And in the words of Maya Angelou, truth is a stubborn fact. Search for the truth. Don't listen to lies. Everybody will lie to you if you're stupid enough to believe it. So make sure you get your own information. Check with Zennie. Zennie is incredible in searching for the truth. Even if it's uncomfortable truth, he will search for it. He will expose it. Even if it's for his friends, he's exposed me more times than I want to count. I'm trying to stay on his good side. So I would suggest that if you want to mess with Zennie, he's going to come back and get you when you least expect it. So Zennie, man, thank you for allowing me part of Zennie62Media as it relates to the Democratic Convention. I want to thank Eric and Bill for indulging me in my overbearing aspect of this part of the show. But I'm going to turn it over to them. They can carry the weight. I thank them for their kindness. And Zennie, I thank you for your time and certainly the positive acknowledgments that you've given me. I appreciate you. I love you, man.
I love you too, man. I got to say this too. Hey, how about this? Because I showed Elihu before we started. The Kremlin is reading Oakland News now. He even tried to take it down, and it didn't work. And hey, I got pictures, folks. I got pictures. As I say, I got receipts.
Hey, take it from Putin. Follow Zennie62 so you see what's going on in America.
That's right. Hey, Vlad, come on the show. Come on the show, Vlad.
All right, you guys. Hey, take care. Peace and blessing to all of you. And let's see what happens. The next 77 days are going to be exciting, interesting, and probably going to be the most important 77 days of any of our collective lives.
We're going to have you back. I'm going to have you back, man. I'm going to get Vlad on too.
All right. Yeah, let's have a debate with Putin. I think that'll be fun.
I'm going to